Welcome to Yellow Brick Road. I'm Jordan, and today I'm talking about Tulsi Gabbard on the Joe Rogan podcast with Jocko Willink, and then I'm going to go over Niko House's, I guess, response and critique or praise or fanboying that he does, in regard to Tulsi's response to Mr. Jocko. But first, please consider donating to Devon's Journey to Recovery. The GoFundMe link is in the description box. Click that link, read the story. I just saw it. I saw a dude who runs the GoFundMe. We know him as Pyramid7. Updated, added a little story there, giving you an update on how Devon is doing. So please check that out at the very least, so you can tell other people about it. Or if you want to donate, hey, donate some money. If you got like $5 or more laying around, you can donate it to a charity. Devon's Journey to Recovery. GoFundMe link in the description box. All right. Yes, it is time. All right. So you're not going to need much build up from me. We're going to basically go right into it. This is going to be Jocko Willink. His opinion in regards to certain foreign policy things or how the military should work and all that. I think it's pretty bad. So, fair warning, this video could be very long. If you're a pussy, you can run away now. If not, stick around. Ma'am. Here we go. Here we go.
What you're saying, and this is kind of my perspective on it. When we talk about, hey, when you go in somewhere, you've got to know what the end state is. You got to know you got to know where you're going and when you're going to leave. You got to have an exit strategy. What's really hard about that is we don't necessarily know, and war is so unpredictable that you may, there's a chance that you went in and killed Gaddafi, and then all of a sudden some benevolent person steps up, and all of a sudden you've got this flourishing democracy. Okay, what are the chances of that? No, very small, but you don't know that it's going to go into this completely failed state.
Something tells me they did all that shit on purpose in regards to Libya. If you can't tell already, this Jocko guy, he's going to be very, he's going to be an apologist for the U.S. military and their actions, essentially, because he was in the military. I think he was like a Navy SEAL or something like that. So he's one of those guys, man, who are like, you gotta support America, no matter what. But if something like the war in Iraq, like how we got into that, or how we got into Libya, he'll probably say it was a mistake. It was a mistaken strategy, rather than, these are corrupt assholes that wanted to take down a government to fulfill some other sort of purpose. Fair warning. You'll hear as we go.
You have high hopes. Maybe your intel people are saying you this. It's like when we did the Bay of Pigs. All the Cubans in America were like, yep, as soon as you guys hit the beaches, all the Cubans are going to be on our side. It's going to be good to go. All the Cubans that supported America were in America. Yeah. We showed up there and they were like, what are you doing? Yeah. No, this is our country. So we don't necessarily know where we're going to go, which means you've got to have, once again, like the open mind to say, oh, this isn't going the way we thought it was going to go. How are we going to adjust right now to prevent this from getting worse? Which means what you really have to do is
stop it before it happens. Right? That's what he's going to say next, right? The goal should be to stop it before it happens.
Prior to intervening in other countries, you have to assess what sacrifices you are willing to make to get the result that is positive. And those
you have to assess the amount of sacrifice before you go into a place. Okay. But shouldn't he be saying, like, okay, part of that is saying we shouldn't go into this place. Like, we really shouldn't go in here. Is that a part of what he's talking about? I don't know. Let's hear.
Could be massive. I always talk about, if you're going to go to war, you've got to have the will. And that will comes in two forms. Number one is the will to kill. Because when you go to war, you are going to be killing people. You're going to be killing the enemy, and you're going to be killing civilians. And that's not what we're trying to do. And believe me, the U.S. military goes through great lengths to prevent that from happening, but it is going to happen. It's war. So
I'm sure there's people that really enjoy the killing part. Just being real with you. I don't mean like it's. I don't even mean it in some conspiracy way. I just mean like guys who have a certain thing activated when they're in these situations, and they're like, "Yeah, I enjoy it. I collect scalps." I'm sure there's dudes like that. I'm sure he knows dudes like that. He might be one himself. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm sure there's guys who enjoy that shit.
Goes through great lengths to prevent that from happening, but it is going to happen. It's war. So you have to be willing to kill. You have to be willing to have that happen. And you have to be willing to die, because when you go to war, there's going to be American kids that are not going to come home. And so you have to have those two wills. That's before you go in. So you can't look at it and say, well, we can go into Libya, we can move this guy, and probably it'll turn out okay, so we don't have to worry about what the sacrifices are going to be. Another thing to think about, when we went to World War II, World War I, those kids, 18 years old, 17 years old, those...
Younger. I've seen the documentaries where this one was about British people, but there's a documentary that was on HBO. I don't remember the name of it. I think it was like directed by the Lord of the Rings guy, Peter Jackson. And there's, actual people who fought in those wars telling stories about it, about how they would walk in and say, "All right, sir. All right, young man, how old are you?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I'm 16. They'd be like, "Listen, we need you to walk out, come back in, and then tell us you're 18. Got it?" It's like, yeah. Pawns will be, they're pawns essentially. But
World War I. Those kids, 18 years old, 17 years old, those kids went to war until the war was over. They went on deployment. Like now, in the Navy, in the Marine Corps, it's a 6-7 month deployment. In the Army, sometimes it's a 14-month deployment, and then they're going to rotate back to the States. In World War II, it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, we're at war. You'll be home when it's over. So 5 years, 4 years. If that was our attitude going into the war, this is so important to us that Johnny is going to get on a ship and he's going to sail to the Pacific. And if he comes home, it's going to be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That's what we're talking about. That's the level of commitment we have. So when we start looking at going into other countries, we need to start thinking, okay, what level of commitment do we really have to make this successful?
Shouldn't it be like, okay, is this justified to do this? Is this okay to do? See, for all the things that people do with the military, you can't say a bad word about troops. You can't criticize them or anything like that. And it's like, but man, like I always say this, but it's like, oh man, what if Jesus floated down from the sky? It's like, do they take, are they higher up on the totem pole than like Jesus? What would he say about, going to war and all this shit? He'd probably just, smoke a cigarette. You guys should have asked why you were going in the first place. I would have did that. Probably a 5-year-old could have thought of that shit. But hey, why are we going? It's not important, the mission. Now, if I had to guess, I'd be like, oh, the guy's just dumb, so he doesn't know that, hey, maybe you should be a critical thinker first off. And then you should be constantly a critical thinker. As in, once you realize that they have us here on phony reasons, these bullshit reasons, then you should say, hey, can you be a leader then? What does a leader look like then? When you find out someone's been lying to you and you've upgraded your information, your database is now updated. It's like, what do you think you should do then? Do you just keep, man, they should have figured out a strategy for they should have been more committed to it. It's like, what? Now, once again, I just think that's just dumb guy language. I don't think he's like, uh, you know, behind closed doors creeper. Like, yes, we're gonna sell the war. Yes, I think he's just conditioned and essentially brainwashed to say stupid shit like that. The level of commitment. It's like, wait. Don't you want to ask if this is like a legitimate thing? Is it aliens invading planet Earth? It's like, fuck, we better get over there. Shouldn't that be question number one? But maybe I'm being too hard on him. Pause. Here we go.
And like, even when I look at Iraq, I was in Iraq, I fought in Iraq. From a granular perspective, being on the ground, Battle of Ramadi, 2006, the citizens of Ramadi, the normal citizens of Ramadi, were overjoyed that we were there. And it was like we were angels to go there and help them get rid of these heinous Al-Qaeda insurgents, which eventually became ISIS.
All right, so I'm guessing he entered after the initial invasion. Maybe I'm getting that right. I don't know. I don't know when he joined the military and got deployed out there. But, people in the city were happy to see him. It's like, okay, well, once again, I would just ask a simple, childish question like, okay, well, what are the scenarios that led to this? To where they're hoping a foreign army with guns and all come into their fucking towns and cities. It's like, what happened before that to make them desire that thing to happen? How did this Al Qaeda thing come about? How did this Saddam Hussein thing come about? Like, these are like just simple, dumb questions you would think to ask, right? Remember, I'm asking these because it's going to play a role later on. Here we go.
Unfortunately, we did a great job. Ramadi was the model of counterinsurgency for about 7 years, and it was less violent than many cities in America. And I had great pride and at least understood the sacrifices, my friends that were killed, my friends that never came home, my friends that won't get to have kids. Right? They did all that. They gave all that. And I was able to look around and say, you know what? These folks in this foreign country, they have an opportunity for freedom. And unfortunately, because of politics and whatever, we said, okay, you know what? We're not staying there. We're going to leave. As soon as we left, everybody that had been on the ground in Iraq was like, this is probably not a good idea. This is probably not a good idea to bail out right now. We don't need to leave a massive force there, but if we leave a few, we leave a couple brigades worth of men, then we'll probably be able to handle any problems that happen. Well, we didn't. We left completely, and those insurgents that were there, they were like little embers, and they started to get fired up again. And then the next thing you know, you had ISIS. And by the way, ISIS marched back into Ramadi. And the reports we got from people on the ground that we knew was that ISIS came in, and anyone that had worked with coalition forces on any level, they would murder the whole family. There's about 500 families that were completely murdered. So,
all right. So, once again, it begs the question. It's like, why are you there in the first place? What are the events that led to you being there in the first place, right? This happens a lot, I don't argue with a lot of military dudes. I wouldn't even know unless you tell me whether I'm arguing with a veteran or not in regards to politics or foreign policy or whatever. But I usually hear this on the side. I'll hear things when veterans are talking and they're, pro whatever war we're in or something like that. They'll say something like, my friends, my brothers and sisters, they sacrificed themselves, and you're gonna throw it all away by just packing up and leaving or whatever. And it's like if this thing, the reason why you're here in the first place was based on, dorks in suits, shifting papers around, creating conflicts around the world or spies or whatever the fuck. It's like, how come you're never looking at those guys, right? And this is why I'm gonna get to where I'm like disappointed and disappointed in Tulsi's response to all this, right? Because she's gonna speak right after this guy's done talking, and it's like, what happens when these dudes who are super like disciplined? I'm talking about just in the persona range, right? They're disciplined. They're fucking, I don't know, stoic to an extent. They're supposed to be like nice guys, gentlemen, if you will. And it's like, what happens when you tell these guys, like, hey, man, remember that friend you were talking about? Yeah, he told me he died and shit. These guys lied to get us into this war in the first place. Right? Like they say, oh, Obama created ISIS in like a roundabout way. It's like, yeah, I agree. But, we were already creating Al-Qaeda before that. And the Mujahideen before that. Installing Saddam Hussein. It's like those things just get, I don't know. Maybe people just want to say, they just want to move on and say, oh, well, that already happened. We got to deal with what we have now. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? Don't you want to just, that's it. We know this is based on bullshit. I'm going to tell the world it's based on bullshit, and that'll make it very easy to just cut it off and move on, right? Funding Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria. You think that's going to, you think that's stopping them? That's stopping the extremists by funding them? By God, that makes no fucking sense. Now, he might not know any of that, but the person he's sitting next to does, because I've heard her say it many a times. But let's continue.
When we talk about these things, we have to be very sure about what we're going to do. We have to recognize that we can't predict everything, because we can't. I don't care how good you are, I don't care how many analysis you put on something. When you start throwing human nature into a leadership vacuum, all these things are going to break out, and it can go very, very bad.
He doesn't understand human nature. He doesn't know. I'm very sure he does not know diddly about, yes, that's right, diddly. He doesn't know diddly about human nature. I hate when people say that shit. Because I'm like, fuck, you got to explain that to me now. Like, I'm sure what I'm talking about when I say human nature. I feel I can do a decent job explaining what I mean by human nature. These guys, it's just a word they throw around. But, sorry, pet peeve.
It can go well, too, but it can go very, very bad. And so what are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to spend? How many...
See, yeah, it's not about, do we go, it's not about, like, are these guys lying to us to get us to do this? That never comes up in what he's talking about. He's just saying it could be good, it could be bad. We don't know what happens because of human nature. Whatever the fuck he's saying, right? It's like that's when someone should drag you back to the initial point, right? Like, drag him back and show him fucking, I don't know, security footage or secret recordings or something of the Bush White House planning the Iraq War. Or is he just a guy that's like, they said we're going to war with Iraq. It's already done, so I guess we got to live with that. So now we just move from there. It's like, wait a minute. At what point do you say stop and okay, completely stop? Let's get the corrupt assholes out of the way completely. Like, oh look, we didn't need to do that. The only reason these bad guys were around in the first place because these fucking creepers were creating them. We got rid of the creepers. I don't mean violence. I mean, like, you're fired. Go mop floors until you're ready to join society again. But, like, it just sounds like there's no questioning of these scenarios. Once again, I'm sorry. It's probably going to be a long video. Here we go.
Of our brothers and sisters in uniform are we willing to sacrifice to make this happen? And how does it help our national security? I believe right now, had we stayed there, Iraq would be a pretty strong, positive place right now.
I doubt that. When you're letting them grow and fester in Syria, right? Don't they like own a town there? Isn't Idlib like Al Qaeda controlled? Right? So it's what? Are you gonna empower them in Syria, but like, look, they're out of Iraq. So okay, Iraq is good. They're good. We can leave now. It's like, wait, but you just been building them up over here, looking to topple this country. But he probably knows nothing about that. If he doesn't, then fuck this guy. He's a fucking creep then. Just being real.
If we had kind of completed the mission the way that we should have. Again, when we go back and we say, okay, well, what countries is it worth going into? You know, where are we going to go? How do we draw that line? How do we make that decision? For me, this is what we do as leaders. What we do as leaders, we look at a situation and sometimes, you know, you got to ask yourself, do we have a moral obligation to go somewhere? If there's a genocide happening, if there's another Rwanda happening, where 800,000 Tutsis are killed in 100 days with machetes, if that's going on, do we have a moral obligation to try and do something to help that? Hey, that's a decision you have to make. That's a hard decision to make as a leader, because guess what? You're going to lose 30, 40, 100 Americans that are going in there and trying to shut this thing down. But that's the type of thing we need to think about. And that's why, as a leader, you want to have an open mind. You want to have your ego completely out of it. Because it's real easy to say, oh, we're America, this is what we do, we're going to win. It's like, no, actually, we made a bad decision, and we're actually leaving right now because we think the expenditure from here on out is going to be too high. Unfortunately, I think in Iraq, we paid the upfront expenditure. We had invested lives and treasure to try and get that place stabilized. We had done a decent job. We were almost there, and we left early. And all of a sudden, we look around and go, oof. But
so he's for staying in Iraq, which I believe we are in Iraq anyways right now. Like, Obama took us back. We need to get back in there and fix it. It's like, dude. And then with the Rwanda thing, right? It's like, but did we intervene there? Did the U.S. intervene there? And it's like, where are we intervening at? It's like this simple logic, right? He brings up a scenario where like these guys with machetes killing 800,000 people, innocent people. It's like, how come it wasn't the invasion of Rwanda, right? How come that wasn't the thing? How come it's Iraq twice? To Afghanistan, to Syria, to Yemen, to Libya, to all these places. Is that what was going on in those countries? Or did us going in there turn it into like a Rwanda? That's what's like simple dumb guy logic looking at that. It's like he brings up, what if it's a scenario like Rwanda? I'd be like, yeah, hey, why didn't we go in there? If they are fucking gun-ho, ready to go, that's not what I would do, but I'm just saying. If these guys are claiming that we're spreading freedom around the world and we're helping people, world's policemen and all that shit, how come we weren't there? I mean, were they? Sounds like 800,000 people died first before they got there if they did go in, according to Jocko here. So that's why it's like, these are tough decisions. Imagine this if it's a Rwanda. It's like, we don't have to imagine. That actually happened. It's like, but here we are in Iraq, Syria, all over the fucking world. Imagine if we were just, funding this military to do a genocide in Yemen. Imagine that. What would we do about that? It's like, that's happening right now. I mean, once again, like I said, either he doesn't know any of this shit somehow, or, he's complicit, which would make him a fucking creeper. He can go fuck himself if he is. But, once again, it's like, guys, we don't have to worry, right? Because Tulsi Gabbard is sitting like 4 feet away from him. And she knows all this shit that I was just talking about. She's going to correct him. She's going to check him on this. Right? You would think.
That's why these things are important to think about thoroughly, as Tulsi said, before you go. We don't know what's going to happen. And, if you're going to get in a street fight, Joe, like...
All right. I'm just going to skip to the Tulsi part, which I will do. I should have said this first. Like, I'm probably going to lose subscribers when I review this. Sorry, Tulsi fans. But we're going to do this through the eyes of Niko House here, who, as you guys know, Tulsi fanboy extraordinaire. He's going to... Sorry, I'm just making sure my volume's good. He's going to play the Tulsi portion, the Tulsi response, and then he's going to make his own assessment of what Tulsi said. That's right. We're working on different dimensions here. How in depth could these other channels be? Look at the Yellow Brick Road. We're so in depth. We're watching other people watch other people. All right. So this should be Tulsi's portion plus Niko House's assessment.
If there was, very well said. If there was one thing when I brought you two together that I thought...
Rogan. It's like the avoider of conflict, Joe Rogan. Mr. Bean Paste. He's like, like Bruce Lee comes back. Like, Joe, too much like water. Too much. You're too much like water. All right. Here's Tulsi's portion. There you go.
Thought that you might disagree on, it would be this stance on non-interventionist foreign policy. I don't know if that's even the right word, disagree. But I think there's nuances to these decisions and these things you talk. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah.
And Rwanda.
I'm sorry, this isn't supposed to be shitting on Rogan time, but I just want to point this out. It's like, I think he does that with damn near all of the topics that approach him. Like, say, hey man, they straight up lied to us to get us into Iraq. Yeah, but there's no way they can really get away with that. See, there's thousands of people that work for the government. How are they gonna, someone would open their mouth. Someone would say something, right? There'd be some sort of whistleblower somewhere. It's like king of muddying the waters. It's like, or they're incompetent and they need to go, right? Yeah, wouldn't it be perfect to just sit down and have a conversation about it? All right. There we go. Sorry for shitting on Rogan.
What you talked about is a great example. Mm-hmm. Do you have a moral responsibility to go in when you see some atrocities being committed? I mean, that's one thing that people either pro or con on is the United States, are we the police force of the world?
Is there a moral duty when there's an atrocity happening? Is there a moral duty to stop it? Well, it depends on what you're looking to be in life, but for me, I'd say yes. But the difference is, when these guys say stop it, they mean shoot the enemy down and right, get the innocent people out of there and kill the guys with the machetes or the machine guns or whatever the fuck they have. It's like, oh man, that's kind of weird. I thought you understood human nature, right? I thought you understood this thing called human nature. So why would stopping them mean just shoot them down? That's like a weird thing in my mind. That wouldn't be my solution, I'm just saying.
Are we the moral high ground?
Yeah, I don't, just listening to you, Jock, I think that, I don't think that we actually disagree very much. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there are important distinctions to be made. My opposition to regime change wars should not be mistaken for isolationism, nor should it be mistaken for anything other than what it is. Let's stop fighting regime change wars that are so often waged in the guise of humanitarianism, but they are pushed forward for other reasons, or they're political reasons or corporate reasons or whatever, and they try to get the sympathy of the American people, and they use the same words, this guy's a monster, this is this. When you actually peel back the layers, there are ulterior motives in place that set the pretext to use our military to go and overthrow a regime in another country or topple a dictator, that ultimately ends up more often than not resulting in the lives of the suffering, more suffering for the people in the countries we're supposedly trying to go and help.
So far, I'd say, okay, that's an okay answer. In a vacuum, when you're just let's say you're just talking to yourself, thinking about these ideas. Well, in a vacuum, that's an okay answer. It's like, sometimes, they hide, their real motives behind saying, oh, it's a genocide, that's why we got to go help. Or this guy's evil and he wants to kill his own people, that's why we need to go in there, right? Sometimes you lie to us about that shit. But Tulsi has to understand who she's talking to, right? She's talking to a pile of Play-Doh, which will move and shift whichever way the guest bends them. That's Joe Rogan. And you have the Jocko guy, right? Who just said all this shit, and it's like, it sounds like you don't know they lied us into Iraq. Imagine if Tulsi Gabbard convinced this guy, this guy was like, I'm a soldier till the day I die. I love America. We protect freedom when we fight these wars. That's what we're doing. We're protecting freedom when we fight. On and so forth. Get the mission done. Some people are going to die. It happens. It's just what's going to happen. You have to be willing to kill to go in. A guy with all those fucking catchphrases sitting right next to you. Like, you should fucking, as politely as possible, lay him the fuck out. Like, hey man, do you know about this, that? Do you know what we're doing right now? This. You're on a platform, like literally in this podcast. I watched the whole thing. In this podcast, they literally bring up, these debate things where you only get 50 seconds to a minute to really answer these complex questions, and they spent like 20 minutes talking about just that. I'm probably exaggerating, but they spend a decent amount of time on that. Now when you have the perfect fucking guinea pig to test your theory about like how your idea is better in regards to foreign policy, you have the gun-ho all-American dude right next to you. You can straight up break down and imagine awakening that guy on the Joe Rogan podcast where you're guaranteed millions of viewers. And plus, that dude has a podcast with all these fucking people. Yeah, I think, what is that, like 500,000 subscriber base? You imagine that. I'm not saying go on there and be like, oh, Tulsi Gabbard destroys Jocko. Or like, nah. I'm saying, like, really educate this dude. 'Cause otherwise, what's the point? You're supposed to be trying to change the mind of every person you come in contact with. Every person that you think like doesn't get it already, you're supposed to be their vaccine walking around. I just triggered some people, by the way. If I bring up the word vaccine, I'm sure I triggered someone. Like, oh, I don't like vaccines. It's just a joke, guys. Don't complain to me about it. But yeah, you're supposed to be a walking cure to the bullshit narratives that get us into wars. You're supposed to be the cure to that. And you have the perfect fucking petri dish of American exceptionalism right next to you. Rogan's not going to get in your way. He's a pushover. Like I say, he's just a ball of Play-Doh sitting there, waiting to be molded by his guest. So it's like, this is all you, Tulsi. This is a layup. Me and James were joking around that it was like, I don't know if you guys know baseball at all. If you know who Mark McGwire is, he's this big, super giant dude that can hit the ball 500 fucking feet, probably 550 feet, somewhere up there. And it's like Tulsi, you're Mark McGwire right now, and you have you have a 5-year-old throwing underhand from 20 feet away. And he's one of the best underhand lob pitchers of all time. He's just purely accurate. The wind is blowing 40 miles an hour out to all fields. They moved the fence in 30 feet. They gave you one of A-Rod's gummies before you took your swings. You have everything working in your favor. It's like, this is your layup. This is fucking Michael Jordan on a fast break by himself. Everyone on the opposing team just snapped their ankles and didn't make it past half court. He's by himself. There's no one there. Even if you slip up a little, you could just regain your balance and shoot it again. No one's stopping you. It's like, she should be like educating this fucking guy on this. Straight up, through and through. But, you know, she decided to become a Rogan. That's literally, that's what I would think happened. Where it's like, oh, you'd rather be friendly and friends with this guy rather than, like, listen, I'm going to be a real friend to you. I'm going to be, that, which means I have to be myself. In order for you to recognize me as a friend and me to recognize you as a friend, I have to be myself. Otherwise, it's a phony game, right? It's the fucking people that walk up to each other and kiss each other on both cheeks and shit. Like, oh, how you doing, darling? Oh, how are the kids? Mwah, mwah. You sip lattes on Wednesdays or something. Or you just go to book club together every Friday. Whatever. It's like, oh, I thought you were fighting for more, Tulsi Gabbard. I thought it was for something righteous. Like I said, this is going to be a long video. I'm already at like 30 minutes. Let's continue.
However, I've been very strong on this. We're talking about Al-Qaeda, ISIS, these other jihadist terrorists who are a threat to our national security.
How did they come about in the first place, Tulsi? How?
We need to stay strong in defeating that threat. That is our function as warriors, as service members in the military, is to go and protect and defend the American people and to take out those who seek to do us harm.
See how it's like a pandering language to the Jocko guy who wants to hear the American exceptionalism concept over and over again. Like, we get all that, like, fuck. Vote for Jordan. That's why I don't vote. Vote for me instead. Because I would have to sit them both down. Her and Jocko, like, listen, I'm going to give you a lesson right now. Here's a lesson. Rogan will accept whatever I say. It's like, yeah, man, we're friends. Want to come shoot bows and arrows later? Pause. Unless you're vegan. All right.
In the case of a genocide, like Rwanda, where there is killing of people at a massive scale,
It was there for a second.
we look to see, hey, is there something that we can do to help end this genocide? Can we work with other countries? Can we bring together a coalition that can effectively stop this genocide? And if the answer to that is yes, then we should do so. But
Now, I understand that Tulsi's actual answer for that is probably something like, you know, answers I've heard her say before, where she explains how the faultiness of how we end up in these wars in the first place, to where it's like, yeah, if there's fucking aliens from another planet that are just trying to shoot people and whatever, I don't know, demons from the underground rise up and start, or zombies or something. It's like, yeah, gung-ho. Go grab your gun and start shooting at them or something. But I've heard her talk about, like, oh, okay, if we eliminate all these other things, like, I don't know, funding the terrorists in these countries, propping up dictators, sanctioning maybe democratically elected governments, and coups against them and regime change against them. It's like, oh, if we didn't do all that, maybe things like Al-Qaeda or ISIS wouldn't even exist in the first place. It's almost like they never would have came about, or they'd just disappear over time. You know, sort of like for that small window of time when Trump stopped funding rebels in Syria, moderate rebels in Syria, then the Syrian army and Russia started just cleaning them up. Not that I agree with their whole motives and all that shit and their actions. I'm just saying, it's like, oh, we're doing these creepy, corrupt, shitty things that are keeping groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda alive in the first place, which is creating them in the first place. I'm sure she has some sort of answer like that. But why didn't she just say that right there? This is the layup. It's a layup. There's no one guarding you. You're Kobe Bryant, who's a fucking killer, playing in the fucking 4th grade girls basketball game. Come on, Kobe. Don't get selfless now. We need you to be selfish. Shoot that motherfucker, man. Shoot it. That's all I'm saying. It's like, come on. And because I know she's talked about these things. She talked about the intelligence community lying us into Iraq on national TV, on CNN, I believe. In her town hall, I believe she said that. And it's like, how come you can't do that in the Rogan podcast with Mr. All-America next to you? Fuck. That's how you, I don't know. I think that's how you boost your numbers. Not avoid conflict at all angles, at all corners. Avoid it. Avoid all conflict. Do not make Mr. All-America angry. Just, rebuttal him without letting him know he's being rebutted. Let him think that we are saying the same exact thing. Anyways.
The problem that we've seen a lot more recently is you'll see the word genocide being used very loosely as an excuse to go and say, hey, well, go and topple this dictator who is inflicting a genocide on their own people without it actually meeting the criteria of a genocide, when really there's a conflict within the country, whether it be based on politics or power or whatever.
It's like, yes, tell him that. Tell him he went to Iraq because of bullshit, paper-pushing assholes who will never fight in a war and whose kids will never fight in that war. Tell him that. You have him right there. He's like, I went into Iraq and I thought we were doing good. It's like, tell him. Tell him. Sometimes they'll tell us there's a genocide going on, but that's not really happening. It's just an excuse to get us into war that, help fund multinational corporations and, certain pockets in the government, certain people in the government. They enrich themselves through these wars, and they take advantage of guys who want to be, all American and all that. He's right there. Tell him that. Tell him he went to war on false pretenses, son. Tell him that. Like, oh God. But seriously, like I said, Kobe, you're on a fast break. Dunk the fucking thing. Jesus Christ. No time to play nice, Kobe. Kobe would never play nice. He's fucking shooting that shit. That dude's pulling up from 50. Yeah. I don't care if it goes in. Anyways, here we go.
That's a very different thing than this, than like what we saw in Rwanda, for example. So, as you say, I agree. I think.
So.
All right, we're gonna move on to Niko's his response to that, to what Tulsi just said. It's like, see, here's the thing. He spent the beginning parts of this video breaking down what Jocko was saying. And it's like, damn, you sound correct about that. You sound like pretty detailed about it as well. Shit. Don't you want Tulsi to do that? Don't you want her to be the walking encyclopedia on regime change? To be able to just say that shit at any moment? Like someone fucking wakes you up out of your sleep at 4 a.m. Like, come on, fucking debate me. Come on. We should go to war. What do you think, huh? She should be like, blah, 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 blah. I'm going back to sleep now. You're dead, by the way. You're dead now. I'm going back to sleep. You know she wears like a robe and shit. Anyways. She sleeps in a robe made of just flowers and shit. She's an angel. So let's see. Will Niko fanboy this up?
That was absolutely masterful. I mean, she got it like 98, 99%. Like that, you know, as far as presidential candidates are concerned, as far as potential people to be commander-in-chief and run the United States military, that was about as perfect as an answer that you could have rebutted with.
I could have did better. Does that qualify me to be president? Niko, you do better. Just the answers I've heard before responding to Jocko. Sounds like you did better as well. Now, if you mean, okay, modern politics, this is the way it should sound, and it should not be, it's a nice, gentle voice, nice and calm. You don't want to scare away certain people. Blah blah blah. If you're paying for this demographic likes this. I'm on the Rogan podcast. Maybe they're a little right-leaning. So I don't exactly just go all out with, anti-war stuff. I say, I damn near agree with everything you just said. But we can't mistake blah, 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 blah. The point is, she rebutted him like he wasn't there. Like this dude Jocko did not just say all that shit first. Once again, I just think he's a dumbass. He could be working on behalf of the State Department, but I think he's more just a dude who just doesn't know about it, or he purposely represses it. It's like all that shit you experienced was because these rich assholes wanted to get richer, and they're willing to sacrifice you to make their money, or whatever other creepy purpose. It's like maybe he tucks that away in the back of his psyche somewhere. Maybe. Or maybe he thinks I'm full of shit. Like someone who says the shit I just said, maybe he thinks guys like me are full of shit. Because they were talking about it, the whole conflict thing again, where it's like everyone's either, pro-Trump or, anti-Trump. It's like, man, we need to find a balanced ground here to lay on. So what if it's like, those guys are literally lying to you to get you to go to war for blah, blah. Like, remember Halliburton? Remember that? Remember Dick Cheney was our vice president? Do you remember all that shit? Remember the anthrax story? Right there. Like, no. This isn't a team playing thing. This is a straight up, these guys lied to get you to go to war. It's like, listen, man, you can't just hate everyone or like everyone. You got to find a balance in the middle. It's like, dear God. It's like, man, I hope a, decorated veteran who fought in the same war as you did would fucking pull you aside and tell you, listen, man, they lied us into these wars. Man, I wish they were, wearing, a blue or purplish suit and sitting 5 feet away from you. Boy, I wish they would do that. Maybe could change this guy's life. Yeah, I'm sure he's successful and makes money and all that shit, but is that really, being absolutely ignorant to these things? Do you want to find out by surprise? Do you want it to be fucking George Bush walked away in handcuffs? Like, oh, fuck. Or do you want someone who's, calm and shit about it? Like, listen, man, I drink the same Kool-Aid. But now I'm here to tell you, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but listen, they lied to us into this thing. So that almost puts you in the scenario of fuck, maybe you shouldn't be talking about this because you're telling us about we need a mission. We need a clear mission. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It's like, yeah, but if you're in this mission thing because someone lied to you, doesn't that like, throw this whole mission opinion out the door? Like, first, let's find out if any war can just legitimately just happen straight up without any bullshit. If you've seen James Corbett's World War I documentary, it's like, people were fucking around then. Now, okay, maybe people don't believe that, but it's worth considering. It's like, lie to me once, fool on you. The point is, you can't fool me again. If we're like fucking sure they lied us into Iraq, both Iraqs actually, but the more famous one is the 2003 Iraq invasion. It's like, okay, what about these other wars? Was there anything bullshit happening that led us here? Like Vietnam, even the world wars that people consider the good ones. Did they lie to us here? Were there people lying to us to get us into this conflict? Some people say yes to all of it. It's like, fuck. We might need guys. Let's just say the Jocko guy is just ignorant. Let's just say he's ignorant. And, he believed that, like, listen, Saddam was a threat. And, maybe he doesn't know that we put him in there in the first place. Doesn't know we funded, Osama bin Laden to allow him to start Al-Qaeda and all that shit. The Mujahideen and when they were fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan. Maybe he doesn't know any of that or whatever. It's like, fuck. The way the dude sounds, like, fuck. Wouldn't it be dope if that dude was, like, really informed? Imagine that dude. Some, like, big yoke dude who has a strong, like, a loud voice, who wants to be a leader. Imagine if he had righteousness 100% on his side. This is why I don't, I may call them dumb to some degree, but I won't, like, shit on these guys who go to war for the sake of, like, we're saving the world when we do it, or we're spreading democracy. Guys who really believe that. And it's like, oh, you have this archetype, this, I wouldn't call it warrior archetype, but it's like a hero archetype. It's dusty, it's fucking, there's wrinkles in it, it's not quite clean, but I can notice it. Imagine if those guys had clear vision and knew what the clear, righteous thing to do was. Imagine that. Those types of guys. Those big, loud dudes. What if they're smart and they can beat the shit out of you? It's like, oh, okay. Things start looking differently. Niko. That's the fanboying. That's a perfect picture, son. This is why you can't be fans of politicians. You can't play on teams when it comes to ideas. It doesn't work that way. This isn't Yankees versus Red Sox. This is people's lives, right? That's why you can't play around with fandom in this area. So him saying, this is a top-notch rebuttal and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's a mediocre one. It would sound good in a vacuum. Isolated in a vacuum, she just said that out of nowhere. I'd be like, oh, all right. Other than we need to take out Al-Qaeda and ISIS thing. But, I could do better than you in that regard. Right? Into the idea of, she might even have the answer that I'm thinking of. Like, hey, maybe if we stop funding them and stop toppling people that don't want them around, amongst other things. So, yeah, we might have the same strategy, similar strategy to getting rid of these extremist creepers, fuckboys, whatever they're called. But Niko with the fucking fanboying, man. Straight up. He's even pouting the lips. What are you about to kiss, son? What are you kissing, son? But yeah, should be critical thinkers. Even if you like Tulsi's answer, I don't know how someone who's a real critical thinker who doesn't have the "I love Tulsi no matter what" goggles on listens to that response. Listen to Jocko's first statements, then listens to Tulsi's response and say, "Fuck, she couldn't have done that any better." It's like, Niko, you just did it better than she did. Actually, after this is what is there, like 20 minutes left in Niko's video? Like, he does it. He fucking lays out all the things. I even think he talks about Rwanda. He says, well, if we weren't like funding these uprisings in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. It's like, fuck, is it everywhere? Fuck, that's why there's no time to be fucking nice about shit. Be yourself, be calm. Show them that you're not a threat to them as like a person. You might be a threat to their ego or some of their ideas, but you're not a threat to them. And you fucking explain it to them. Shit. Tulsi, you could do that. I'm sure he'll just, maybe it turns into a debate, but fine. Good. Now you have an audience to let you. Now you have an audience that's watching, be like, fuck, I get to hear both sides of this. Rather than you making a complete. You basically just told Jocko that he went to war for a poor reason, for no reason at all. Like the thing he's building his life on right now. I served here, and it's leadership and quotes and what is it? Get up at 4:30 a.m. every day, 4:38 in the morning. Get up. Gains. Wherever the fuck he says. It's like, like he probably didn't recognize, and I'm sure a lot of the audience didn't recognize that you just told them, like, they do a lot of these wars and they'll make you think that there's a genocide going on, but really it's for the interest of these assholes over here. Right? That was essentially her answer. But it was like you didn't say it to him. Right? like he went there for that. Am I tripping? Is that not what happened with Iraq? They made us think there was some sort of genocide happening, right? Weapons of mass destruction. Or using them on its own people, or Al Qaeda's going to take over them, and then they're going to use the WMDs on us, and blah 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 blah. And then, yeah. All right, I'm done. This is more of a unconventional version of that's the first Iraq war. Babies in incubators. Yeah. All right, this was a unconventional style video. Me just rambling for like an hour. I'm sure some of you will subscribe or unsubscribe. I'm sure there's a decent amount of you that are going to unsubscribe, but don't worry, those guys won't even be watching this far enough into the video to hear that I know they're going to unsubscribe. So in that case, if you're new, I need you to make up the losses I'm about to have. Please subscribe if you like. Comment, agree, disagree. Tell me what you think. Do you think Tulsi's answer was acceptable, considering the context of Jocko and just a ball of Play-Doh in the same room as her? Like water, Joe. Like water. Too much. Too much water.
Too much like water. No.
Yeah, comment. Tell me what you think. Agree with me, disagree with me. A little of both. Little gray area, little nuance. What do you think? Don't forget to donate. Devon's Journey to Recovery. GoFundMe link in the description box. I almost said subscription box. Hit the script. Donate. Devon's Journey to Recovery, script. That's right. Go to that script. Hit that GoFundMe account. Donate. Devon's Journey to Recovery. GoFundMe link in the description box. With all that said, give this video a thumbs down.
Say you wanna get in.